Hey guys, this is Joseph Perry. I am here fueling myself for Reformation coffee and discipleship in the Apostolic. And you know, we've got this event coming up in a few weeks that I'll tell you about in a couple minutes. But I'm thinking today about how badly the church needs an apostolic paradigm. I mean, we need it bad because there are so many. There are so many caps right now. The church has so many limits on us, so we keep hitting the ceiling. We have these limitations that come out of limited thinking. We're in a limited paradigm, and we don't even know it, and we don't realize why we're not effective as we could be. That we're not crushing it like we should be able to. The different gifts, leadership gifts, pastors, evangelists, teachers, apostles, everybody. We're not hitting our full potential in who we are. Pastors are too busy trying to be the evangelist, the theologian, teacher, the apostle, trying to keep people focused on the community, focused on each other, trying to build tools, provide people with tools and all these things. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, there are people that are the head of the church, and we typically call them the pastor. But sometimes it's an evangelist or an apostle or a prophet or something. And the problem is we keep trying to fit in this mold that the way we've been doing church for so long. And I got to tell you, it's not working. And you can probably tell it's not working because of the burden that's on you if you're a leader, or the burden that maybe you see on the leaders in your church. But I'll tell you what, your church is full of leaders, of leadership potential, but most of those are the saints. Because the Bible says in Ephesians 4:11 through 16 that when Christ ascended, he gave gifts to the church. And these gifts are apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, and teacher. He gave these 5 leadership gifts to equip the saints. So you've got two groups of people there. You got equippers and you got doers. And so we have all these leadership equipping gifts, and rather than equip the people to do the work of the ministry, what we tend to do, and I've pastored, I get this, what we tend to do is we tend to create cultures and do things in a way that make people dependent on us rather than teaching, training, and equipping them with the tools that they need to understand their assignment outside of these, the 4 walls of the church that we're always talking about breaking out of. We've got to get out of this, and we've got to, the church leaders, we need to get back to being equippers and not just doers of the ministry. Yeah, sure, we can lead by example, and we should and all that, but that's part of the training. That's part of all of that. And it's time we do it, because listen, we've got to move from this sort of a pastorate government that we've been in. Now, this is nothing negative towards pastors. Pastors in an apostolic paradigm, their effectiveness is going to go through the roof, because they're not going to have to be the evangelist anymore. They're not going to have to be the teacher or the prophet or the apostle or whatever. They're not going to have to operate and try and fill so many seats and wear so many hats all the time. They're going to be able to shepherd the people the way that they're supposed to. But some of you that are leading churches, some of you are not shepherds, you're actually teachers. And you're going to find that you don't have to be the shepherd anymore. You can be the teacher and impart a love for the truth and make true disciples. It's just going to be amazing, but we have so many caps right now on the church, on how we think. We have limited thinking. It's creating limitations, and our effectiveness is down. We're not hitting our true potential and who we are, what we're called to. We're not empowering people to step into their assignments, and all these things are so, so important. And that's why we need an apostolic way of thinking, an apostolic paradigm. And you don't find this in Ephesians 4:11. That's where everybody goes to. That's where we hear about those 5 gifts. But we start to learn more about what an apostolic paradigm is, and not just a 5-fold paradigm, but an apostolic paradigm when you go to 1 Corinthians 12:28. first apostles, second prophets, third teachers. It's talking about these paradigms that we need, sort of this kind of order where we're able to look at things holistically and not just the way that maybe a pastor would or just the way an evangelist would, but an apostle. Apostles reach over when you're putting a puzzle together and they grab the puzzle box and they put that in front of them, just like when you're putting a puzzle together, and they look at the whole picture, and then we start to see where all the pieces go. So without having an apostolic framework or paradigm, which is what we're doing at our event in a few weeks, about 2.5 weeks, without that puzzle box, we start to make ministry and church and discipleship about whatever our piece is. So we've got to return back to that holistic paradigm, that holistic way of looking at things, and it makes room for all the other gifts, all the other leadership gifts, and then it empowers the people to go out into the marketplace and do ministry there. And we're not talking about just Bible studies. We're talking about launching businesses. I mean, multi-million-dollar startups. We're talking about making films that change the course of history. I mean, how many films? Think about the number of films that you watch that you're still impacted by today, something you saw 30, 40 years ago. You know, film shape culture, book shape culture, businesses shape culture. And we could talk about this, and we're going to be talking about this at the event. But all these things shape culture, and that is what discipleship is. So we think discipleship is, how do I become more like Jesus? Yes, that's true. That's a part of it. But out of the overflow of your relationship with God, you should be changing the world, because your relationship with God was meant to change the world. But if you're not equipped with that, if you don't understand your gifts, your calling, if you're not being equipped by the whole fivefold, then you're missing something. And so we're going to be talking about this. So we're doing this event. And there's one more thing. You know, there are no limits when it comes to the apostolic paradigm, the apostolic framework, because the apostolic is kingdom. Now, I know we all say we're kingdom, I get that, but we don't realize how little kingdom culture we actually have and how much church culture we're grounded in, or rooted in, I guess you could say. And so when we get into church tradition, we get into our church tradition or our denomination's church tradition. But sometimes it's these traditions of men that keep us from operating in the fullness of the kingdom. And Isaiah writes, he prophesies, and he says, of the increase of his government and of peace, there shall be no end. What does that mean? That means that the posture of the kingdom is constantly advancing. It's that there's no growth limits. There's unlimited growth potential. We're talking about being able to scale the impact and the work of God in your city, in your church, in your families, to touch business, the arts, culture, education. There are no limits. And your church, if you're a pastor, your church is to play a role in this. If you're a saint, if you're one of the saints who are called to do the work of the ministry, then you belong in the marketplace. And you don't have to aspire to a pulpit in order to have validation for who you are and what God's called you to. But you do need the tools, and you do need the thinking and the equipping, and that's what this framework's about. So if you're just tuning in, or if you're watching this video later, go back, check out the whole video. We've got to get this right. The church is really powerful, and we don't act like it. But let me tell you something. We always talk about servant leadership, and servant leadership is good, and it's powerful. It's sort of redundant to say servant leadership, because true leadership is based on serving. But the new leadership is called discipleship. Now, that's not really new, but we don't understand it. It's like a brand new concept to us, but it was what Jesus originally intended. So discipleship is the new leadership, okay? And so we're going to be talking about that at the event. So on August 20th, 2020, so on August 2020, we're doing this event called The Fivefold Gifts, an Apostolic Framework for Church and Marketplace Leaders. I encourage you to be there. It's $199 for a half day. And we're going to be doing it out in Chesapeake, so hopefully you're local. If not, fly in. If you need help finding a hotel, let me know. Just put a message here. When this video is done, I'm going to put the link in the comments, and you can find the link for the event there. But this is for church leaders. It's for marketplace leaders. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm in the marketplace, but I'm not a leader. Listen, you're called to be a leader. Because all you need to do is be able to just be kind of like 5 or 10 feet out prophetically in front of everybody else, in front of the world, and suddenly the world is looking to you for answers. The world is shaking, and Jesus has promised, and we see this in the Old Testament, and we see it again in Hebrews, that he's promised to shake once more, yet again, not only the earth, but also the heavens. And so therefore, since we're receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken, we cannot be shaken, let us hold fast, for our God is a consuming fire. Listen, the world is shaking, and especially during COVID, especially during all this upheaval that we're experiencing all over the world is shaking, and they're looking for anything that's not shaking that they can hold on to. A rock that is immovable, that is steadfast, that is sure. And that rock is Christ, but they're only going to come to Christ when they see your life not shaking. So is your business shaking? Are you shaking? Is your ministry shaking? Listen, we're in this time with COVID, but I want to tell you something. I'm so sorry for everybody who's COVID has created such challenging times, but I'm also excited because when I started out this year, I thought to myself, what a terrible year this is. How bad is this? Let me tell you what, I've had a change in thinking. And this is probably the most exciting year I've ever lived, because this challenge that we're experiencing is creating a transition point, and every transition is an invitation to an upgrade with God. But for that upgrade, you can't let go of an old paradigm, an old way of thinking with limitations and everything else. No matter how much it's not working, you can't let go and break off from the old paradigm until you are presented with a new way of thinking, a new paradigm, a new framework, and what you need is an apostolic framework. So that's what we're talking about. August 20th, 2020. It's going to be in the morning, half day. I think it's Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. I'm going to put the link in the comments in just a minute, and I hope you can be there. It's $199 for the day. It's a half day event, and you're going to be able to go there and receive some new thinking, receive this framework, and you're going to be empowered to do some things you've never done before. And it's going to open up a whole world to you. And I say that confidently because that's what it did for me as I started to learn it and understand it. And it is a game changer. It's going to change the game, not just for you, but for your church, your ministry, your business, and for the community that you live and you work in. So go there, register today. We've got a limited number of seats. We're only taking 40 people tops. And so go do it now. I'm going to put the link in the description in just a minute, and I hope to see you there. Thanks.